The officiant inhaled to ask the old question, if anyone knows a reason, and I was on my feet before the sentence finished. My chair scraped the church tile like a warning shot. I do, I said, voice steady enough to surprise me. His name isn't Daniel Shaw. It's Evan Cole. And he's already married. To me. Every head turned. My sister, Mia, froze at the altar, bouquet trembling. The man she believed was Daniel, my husband, didn't flinch. He did what he always did when the story stopped obeying him. He smiled, a soft, apologetic smile, the kind that makes strangers want to rescue him. The nave held its breath. Somewhere, a phone camera chimed to life. We were in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in a Unitarian church with white columns, rented peonies, and a string quartet tuning for joy. Outside, the square buzzed with undergrads and early lilacs. Inside, our mother gripped the pew so hard her rings bit the wood. If love has a worse day, it is the one where it realizes it has been naive. Security, the coordinator whispered, already moving. But Mia's eyes were locked on mine, and I on hers, and in the silence between us we traded the whole history, the nights I'd defended him, the checks I'd written, the slow humiliation of paying a man who put on my coat of trust and wore it to death. We had promised we'd never become a spectacle. I was making a spectacle to stop a cruelty. He turned to the minister with a gentle shrug. She's not well, he murmured, compassion painted on like primer. It's unfortunate. She and I, we were separated. She's been struggling. Classic Evan. When truth approached, he held up pity like a shield. I stepped into the aisle. We were not separated. We were orchestrated. The word felt right. He orchestrated exits the way other men plan dinners, quietly, efficiently, with a smile that asked you to compliment the service. People think con men live loud. Evan lived neat. When we met in a co-working space in Portland, he had a small portfolio, a clean laptop, a vocabulary of kindness. He called himself a boring investor, which sounded safe after years of chasing men with big plans and bigger debts. We married quickly, in a backyard with fairy lights and tacos, my blue state friends clinking mason jars to forever. 2 months later, his liquidity issue began. A client delayed payment. A partner pulled out. A wire failed. I covered a bill, then a rent, then the taxes just this quarter, all while he promised to pay me back, swore he was mortified, kissed my palms like vows. The months slipped and I learned a new grammar in which I was the subject and he the drain. By year 3, he had a different story for everyone. To my friends, he was the generous husband who surprised me with trips I paid. To his, he was the stoic man bearing the shame of a wife with family obligations, my mother's chemo, which he weaponized into alibis. To me, he was bedtime apologies and morning budgets, eyes wet when I opened my banking app. He never yelled. He didn't need to. He performed incapacity so well that rescuing him felt like moral superiority. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday, the kind that looks like a smudge until light hits it. I found an email to Daniel at rivuletcapital.com confirming a ceremony walkthrough in Boston. Evan had no Boston. He had me, our lease in Portland, and a series of unpaid promises. Client event, he said smoothly, scrolling past. The subject line read Shaw, ceremony. I learned to read subject lines like radiology. When Mia called 2 weeks later, breathless, to say she'd met someone, Daniel, brilliant, kind, a quiet finance guy who loved bookstores and her laugh, I felt the ground turn. She sent a photo from a cafe, his soft mouth, his gentle sweater, the hand I knew too well on a porcelain cup. My vision salted out. I typed, deleted, typed what's his last name again, deleted. She wrote back, Shaw. Why? I lay down on my kitchen floor and let the linoleum cool my face. The script of a con is repetition. They don't improvise, they tour. He had toured me through the same acts now cued for my sister, the quick intimacy, the I never felt this safe, the proposal before due diligence. I could have played along and collected proof in silence. But Mia had my mother's eyes and our grandmother's stubborn joy. Silence is what men like him live inside. I broke it. Stop the ceremony, I said, louder now. Mia, he used me for money until shame became my wallpaper. When I started asking questions, he went to Boston for meetings. I think he meant you. My voice cracked on the last word, not from weakness but from the physics of betrayal, how it fractures as it falls. He took a half step toward me, palms open, flanked by groomsmen who suddenly looked like furniture regretting its placement. Nora, he said softly, you're grieving. Your mother's illness, it's been a lot. Let's step outside, just you and me. He was always trying to move conversations to thresholds, doorways, sidewalks, the private stage where charm blooms and witnesses thin. I stayed rooted. No, I said. We'll speak here. The minister lowered her book. Mr. Shaw, she said carefully, do you have anything to disclose to this assembly? His smile tightened into something thinner. Only that I loved a woman who left me and have the right to a new life. Mia's bouquet lowered. Did you ask her for money? She asked, voice so calm it broke my heart. Did you ask my sister for money the way you've asked me? A gasp rippled. Our mother closed her eyes. He turned to Mia, wounded. You told me you'd keep that between us, he whispered, just loud enough for the front rows. He did that, converting private shame into leverage. It's unbecoming to talk about finances in public. Then stop making them public, I said, taking 2 steps up the aisle, each one a year. Stop turning women's homes into your bailout plan. Security arrived, but the minister lifted a hand and they paused. Ms. Pierce, she said to me, do you have proof? Proof is what saved me from becoming the punchline of a cautionary tale. I pulled my phone from my clutch, hand suddenly so steady I could have threaded a needle. Screenshots lined up like a choir, his Venmo requests annotated bridge till Friday, an LLC registry for Rivulet Capital with a mailing address that matched the Daniel Shaw stationery, a photo I'd taken of his passport when we booked flights, Evan Michael Cole, and, finally, a copy of a marriage certificate with both our names, county stamped, 3 years and 9 months old. I airdropped the file to the minister at the podium. My sister's face went from white to red to something I'd only seen once before, when we scattered our grandmother's ashes and realized love can survive disillusionment. He said my name again, pleading now, turning to the room like a chorus would materialize. No one moved. At last he dropped the smile, the way a magician drops the silk when the trick is blown. You can ruin this, he said, low. But you'll ruin your sister's life too. Mia set down her bouquet. No, she said, spine straightening like a verdict. You already tried. The minister cleared her throat. We will take a recess, she announced, steady but shaken. Parties may step outside. The quartet set their instruments down as if placing bodies. Outside, the May light had the sharpness of a cleanse. In the courtyard, the coordinator whispered, do you want me to call the police? Mia and I looked at each other, said, and something in us clicked into a hinge. First we take everything he's tried to take, the narrative, the receipts, the room. Later, there would be subpoenas and statements, bank records and a detective who used the word pattern like a rope we could finally hold. But in that moment, with lilacs breathing and the church doors shut on a life he'd scripted for us, we did the only thing that ever stops a con, we told the truth out loud, together. Evan's game never started with begging. That was the brilliance of it, if you can call exploitation brilliance. It started with abundance. On our honeymoon, he whisked me to Sonoma, rented a convertible, ordered 3 bottles of wine for a table of 2. I want you to know what life with me will feel like, he said, feeding me strawberries dipped in chocolate he hadn't checked the price of. At the time, I thought it was romance. Later, I understood it was bait. For the first year, he played the part of a man with endless resources. He bought me jewelry that sparkled but came from shops where receipts were accidentally misplaced. He surprised me with vacations booked last minute, assuring me the bill had been handled. If I pressed, he laughed gently, don't worry about the mechanics, Nora. Enjoy the life we're building. And I wanted to believe him. I wanted to live inside the dream of being chosen by a man so effortlessly capable. The first slip was subtle, a temporary liquidity issue. He was in real estate investments, he said, and sometimes capital got tied up in escrow. Could I cover the rent just this month? He swore he hated asking. I said yes. 1 month became 3. Then 6. By then, I was paying the mortgage on a house he insisted we buy for our future family. His name was on the deed. My money was in the bank drafts. My friends noticed first. Over brunch, one asked, "Does Evan ever work?" I bristled. Of course he worked. He was always on calls, laptop open, charts glowing across the screen. But when she asked what exactly he invested in, I realized I couldn't answer. Diversified portfolios, I muttered. She raised her eyebrows. That's not a business model, Nora. That's a word salad. I laughed it off, but inside, unease grew. My father used to say, if someone can't explain their job in 1 sentence, they probably don't have one. I pushed the thought down. Love requires faith, doesn't it? Year 2, the requests multiplied. A tax bill he couldn't access funds for. A business partner who disappeared with the capital. Each story sounded urgent but temporary, each plea painted with shame. I hate myself for this, he'd whisper, head in his hands. You deserve a man who takes care of you. I'll fix it. Just hold me up until I can stand again. And because he didn't shout, because he wrapped dependency in humility, I believed him. The debt wasn't just money. It was silence. I stopped telling my sister, Mia, about our finances. When she asked how married life was, I pasted on a smile and said, wonderful. I didn't want her to see the cracks, to confirm the voice in my own head that said I was being used. Evan had a way of making shame feel like loyalty. If I doubted him, I was unsupportive. If I questioned him, I was hurting our future. So I swallowed questions, wrote checks, and convinced myself that sacrifice was love. But little things slipped through. The cufflinks he pawned to cover bills showed up again at a wedding reception. The client he swore had defaulted posted photos of a ski trip in Aspen. When I confronted him, he laughed softly. Coincidences, babe. Don't drive yourself crazy. He kissed me until my doubt felt like paranoia. By year 3, the script grew thinner. His partners were always faceless. His deals never closed. Yet he still managed to fund expensive dinners, always when we were with his friends, always in public. In private, he handed me envelopes of unpaid bills like offerings. One night, I found a note in his desk drawer, a list of women's names, each with dates beside them. I thought it was a networking log. Then I noticed the dates matched years, 3 year, for there, too. The pattern was chilling. I asked him about it. He shrugged, said it was old clients. But I remembered one name, Marissa. A woman I'd once seen call him late at night. He'd silence the phone, muttering, crazy ex. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. The breaking point came when Mia called, glowing about her new boyfriend, Daniel Shaw. She said he was generous, thoughtful, a little mysterious with money but solid. She sent me a photo. My blood froze. Same eyes, same smile, same careful sweater. That was when I knew I wasn't his only stage. I was just one act in a traveling play. I began collecting everything, bank transfers, his Venmo requests, texts where he thanked me for saving him again. I kept a diary, logging every emergency. He thought he was building a web. I was building a case. When Mia introduced me to Daniel in Boston, I didn't confront him. Not yet. I played polite, let him shake my hand, let him think I was fooled. Inside, rage burned steady, cool. My sister's future depended on patience. And patience, finally, was mine. The weeks after Mia's engagement announcement felt like living in a double exposure, half my life in Portland, the other half in Boston shadows where Evan, now Daniel, spun the same story with a new audience. Mia sent me photos of flowers he'd bought her, little love notes he left on her desk. I recognized them. Word for word, pose for pose, down to the way he signed his name with a flourish that looked like sincerity. I wanted to scream, to tear the mask off his face in front of her. But instinct whispered, wait. If I lunged too early, he'd slip away, and Mia would end up doubting me instead of him. So I played my part. I congratulated her, told her he seemed nice. Then, as soon as we hung up, I opened a private folder on my laptop and started a new label, Evidence. The first thing I did was trace his aliases. Evan Cole. Daniel Shaw. A background check site pulled up fragments, addresses in 3 states, 2 dissolved LLCs, a trail of unpaid bills. One listing caught my eye, an Evan Cole once married in Nevada, divorced 3 years later. The date lined up perfectly with the name Marissa I'd seen in his drawer. I reached out to her. At first, she didn't want to talk. He ruined me, she said in a flat voice. I'd rather forget. But when I told her my sister's name, her tone sharpened. He's still doing it? She told me everything. The quick romance. The promises. The financial emergencies. The years she spent covering his expenses while he waited for a deal to close. And then the slow fade, the excuses, the eventual divorce papers. He's a parasite, she said. And he never changes. Marissa sent me scans of her old bank statements, even their marriage license. Use them, she said. Just stop him. Meanwhile, Mia began noticing cracks herself. One night she called me, uneasy. Daniel asked me to cover his credit card bill. Just this once. He said it was some kind of bank error. My chest tightened. The playbook was unfolding again, act by act. I wanted to tell her everything right then, but I held back. Keep the receipts, I said calmly. Every text. Every transfer. Humor him. I'll explain soon. She hesitated. Grace, is there something you're not telling me? Not yet, I said. But soon. And when I do, you'll believe me. Together, we began collecting quietly. She forwarded screenshots of his requests. I compiled timelines from my own marriage. Side by side, they were nearly identical, the same excuses, the same partners who disappeared, even the same phrase, I hate myself for asking this. One night, Mia spotted him scrolling through photos on his phone. When he went to shower, she peeked. He had a hidden album, screenshots of past conversations with women, folders named with initials. She snapped what she could before he came back. Later, she sent them to me, her hands shaking. This is real, isn't it? She whispered over the phone. Yes, I said. And we're not the only ones. Through online forums and old contacts, I found 2 more women. One in Denver, one in Chicago. Each had the same story, whirlwind romance, sudden marriage, financial collapse that mysteriously coincided with their accounts becoming joint. Each ended in divorce, each woman left drained, emotionally, financially, spiritually. We set up a group call, the 4 of us, faces pixelated but voices steady. We compared notes, dates, amounts. The patterns were undeniable. He marries for stability, Marissa said bitterly. And when he's drained you, he finds another. For the first time, I felt less alone. This wasn't my shame anymore. It was his pattern. With Mia by my side, I went to an attorney. She listened silently as we laid out documents, screenshots, bank records. When we finished, she folded her hands. You have a case, she said. Fraud, bigamy, financial abuse. Courts don't like parasites. With this much documentation, you can bury him legally. The relief that washed over me was sharp, almost painful. Years of doubt and humiliation condensed into one truth: I hadn't been foolish. I'd been targeted. We filed quietly. Subpoenas went out. Investigators traced his bank transfers. It turned out he never invested a cent, he just shifted money between women, living off their patience until it broke. He wasn't a finance man. He was a professional dependent. Mia and I promised each other, no matter how painful the trial, we'd sit side by side in that courtroom. We'd stare down the man who had fed on us both. Because silence had protected him long enough. The courthouse in Boston was nothing glamorous: fluorescent lights, scuffed floors, the faint smell of burnt coffee drifting from a vending machine. But that morning it felt like the stage where years of lies would finally collapse. Mia and I walked in together, our heels clicking like a metronome. We weren't dressed for drama, we were dressed for war: dark suits, hair pulled back, binders in hand. He was already there, sitting with his lawyer, crisp as ever in a tailored suit that I knew he hadn't paid for. When his eyes met mine, he didn't scowl. He smiled. Always the smile. To the jury, to the clerk, to anyone who might see him as a misunderstood man. But there was a flicker, just a flicker, in his jaw. He hadn't expected me to walk in with my sister, united. The prosecution laid it out methodically. Evan Michael Cole, also known as Daniel Shaw, married multiple women under false pretenses. He presented himself as financially secure, only to claim sudden crises and exploit his spouses for financial support. We present evidence of a pattern spanning a decade, across 4 states. Exhibit after exhibit appeared on the projector: marriage certificates with different names, Venmo screenshots, bank transfers annotated just until Friday, emails promising repayment that never came. Photos of him with Marissa, then me, then Mia. Same poses, same promises, same hollow eyes behind the smile. One by one, the women testified. Marissa went first, voice trembling but clear. He said I was his salvation. I covered rent, bills, even his car lease. When I couldn't anymore, he said I'd abandoned him. I thought I was crazy. Then I realized he was rehearsing. I followed. My hands shook when I swore the oath, but when I spoke, my voice steadied. He didn't steal with force. He stole with charm. He made me feel guilty for questioning him, ashamed for keeping score. But love isn't supposed to bankrupt you. It's supposed to build. I held up the diary I'd kept, each entry logged with dates and amounts. This is my record. And it matches theirs. Mia testified last. She didn't cry. She looked him dead in the eye and said, "You thought you'd take my future the way you took my sister's. But I'm here because she warned me. And because women talk. You can't erase all of us." His defense was as predictable as the rest of his script. He painted himself as a dreamer undone by bad luck. He told the jury he suffered from undiagnosed financial anxiety disorder. His lawyer argued he never forced anyone to pay, that we chose to help. Generosity gone sour is not fraud, the attorney said smoothly. But the jury saw the pattern. 4 women. 4 marriages. The same playbook every time. The notary who'd signed his documents under different names. The tax filings that showed no income for years. Even the luxury receipts he'd hidden, proving he had money when he claimed poverty. When he took the stand, he tried one last performance. He looked at me, voice breaking. "Nora, you know I loved you. I failed. Isn't failure human?" I leaned forward, meeting his gaze without flinching. Failure is human. Fraud is not. The courtroom went silent. Closing arguments were swift. Our attorney's final words still ring in my ears: he didn't just scam wallets. He scammed trust. He didn't just take money. He took years. The jury deliberated less than 4 hours. When they returned, the foreperson's voice was steady. Guilty. On all counts. Mia squeezed my hand so hard my knuckles cracked. My body shook, not from fear but from release. He sat stone-faced now, the smile finally gone, jaw tight as the bailiff moved to take him into custody. For once, he wasn't the man in control of the story. He was just another criminal in a courtroom, waiting to be led away. Afterward, in the hallway, reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. Microphones thrust forward. "How does it feel?" one asked. I looked at Mia, at Marissa, at the others who'd come. "It feels like we stopped a cycle," I said simply. "And maybe saved the next woman he thought he'd charm." That night, we didn't celebrate with champagne. We sat around my kitchen table, me, Mia, Marissa, the others, with takeout containers and wine in mismatched glasses. We laughed, we cried, we let ourselves exhale. Justice hadn't erased what he took. But it gave us back our names. The day of sentencing, the courtroom was quieter than the trial had been. No jury, fewer reporters, just the echo of footsteps on polished floors and the low murmur of attorneys flipping files. Mia and I sat side by side again, hands linked. When they let him in, shackled at the wrists, his suit replaced with a plain jumpsuit, I almost didn't recognize him. The performance was gone. The smile that had disarmed so many of us was absent. For the first time, he looked small. The judge read the charges, her voice firm, multiple counts of fraud, bigamy, financial coercion. "You built your life," she said, "on the labor and trust of women you deceived. Marriage is not a business venture, and love is not a ledger. This court sentences you to 12 years in federal custody, with restitution to the victims." Restitution. The word landed like a gavel in my chest. No sum could buy back the years we lost, the dignity he drained. But hearing it spoken, knowing the system had named his theft, that mattered. Mia exhaled slowly, tears streaking her cheeks. I squeezed her hand. We didn't cheer. We didn't smile. We just let the silence settle, because silence was something he could no longer control. In the weeks that followed, the news ran stories not about him, but about us, the women who spoke. Headlines shifted from serial husband exposed to sisters bring conman to justice. Journalists wanted details, juicy anecdotes, but I gave them one line: we believed him because he seemed safe. We stopped him because we chose each other. Emails poured in. Strangers, mostly women, wrote, "I think my boyfriend is doing the same thing. Thank you for saying what I was too ashamed to admit." One even wrote, "Because of your story, I left before the wedding." Those messages became our real restitution. Proof that speaking out saves more than just ourselves. Mia and I started small, an online group first, then a non-profit. We called it the Second Vows Project. Our mission, to help people, mostly women, vet partners, understand financial abuse and know they aren't alone. Lawyers volunteered time. Therapists offered workshops. Survivors shared their stories, building a chorus no single liar could outshout. At our first public meeting, 50 people showed up in a church basement. At the second, there were 100. By the end of the year, we'd hosted a summit in Boston. Standing on stage beside Mia, looking out at rows of faces, I finally understood what power really felt like. Not control, not manipulation, but truth held in common. Sometimes, late at night, I still remember the good moments, the strawberry in Sonoma, the way he whispered that I was his safe place. For a long time, I hated myself for missing even a second of it. But now I see it differently. The memories aren't shame anymore. They're evidence. Evidence of how carefully predators dress up their cages. And evidence of how strong it is to break free. Mia asked me once if I regretted marrying him. I thought hard before I answered. No, I said. Because without that mistake, we wouldn't have found the strength. We wouldn't have saved each other. She nodded, tears shining, and whispered, then maybe the con didn't win after all. On the anniversary of the trial, we visited Marissa in Denver. We sat around her kitchen table with coffee and cookies, laughing at how surreal it all seemed. We weren't just ex-wives anymore. We were friends, allies, survivors turned architects of our own justice. And when someone asked me how it felt to face him in court, I told them the truth. It felt like turning a page. He thought he was the author. But the story was always ours to finish. Now, when I introduce myself, I don't say divorced or scammed. I say, I'm Nora Pierce. I believed a liar, but I believed my sister more. Together, we ended his cycle. And together, we built something that will outlast every false vow he ever made. And that, finally, is the vow I keep.